Have you lost your job? Have you lost a loved one? Are you exhausted caring for your parents, for your kids? Well, you can find immediate relief when you read Sheila Mac's new #1 bestseller, Bootstraps and Bra Straps. It contains the Boots formula to move from rock bottom back into action in any situation, especially right now. So if life has knocked you down, pick yourself up with Bootstraps and Bra Straps. Get your copy at www.SheilaMac.com today.
Are you ready for a reboot? Welcome to the Sheila Mac Show, reality at its finest. History reminds us those hit hardest often become the change makers. This year, we've all hit crazy economic, social, and emotional rock bottoms. We all get knocked down. Something hits globally, locally, personally. It affects our health, finances, our relationships. We have to recreate a business or career. Each show, Sheila and her special guest will be sharing their reboot stories, guiding you with real solutions to upgrade and up-level emotionally, mentally, physically, spiritually, and financially. Here on NBC's KCAA Radio.
Welcome to the Sheila Mac Show, reality at its finest. Here we have real people sharing real stories and actionable steps to help you reinvent, rebuild, and reboot your business and personal life on your terms. I'm your host, Sheila Mac, and today we have special guest Angella Goran. Angella is the TAPanGO founder and CEO. Angella is a professional cyclist, world-class multi-sport athlete, and an experienced entrepreneur. Her life experience and ongoing passion for sports informed the choice of TAPanGO flagship program, ATHLETICA Rewards, ATHLETICA Protect, and this is something that is launching now in the U.S. and Canada. All right. Welcome to the show, Angella.
Thank you so much for having me, Sheila. It's a great pleasure to be here. Humbled.
And I'd like to start each show. Actually, the show came about based on my new best-selling book, Bootstraps and Bra Straps, Formula to go from rock bottom back into action in any situation. And obviously, this last 14 months, we have had just about every situation imaginable, and some we couldn't even fathom would happen in our lifetime. So I'd love to ask you if you could share about a time in your business and personal life when you hit a tough situation and how you got back on track.
Oh my gosh. Well, there's definitely, I think everybody's got a few, and for sure this year, but I think from words of advice and for your viewers and listeners, being a female founder, I think I go back now to the last recession that we had in North America in 2008. That was when I started my first company, and it was a small little social enterprise that gave back to kids right across Canada with an education program. And at the time, I left a great government job and, had the security. And I didn't really know lots about business, and I didn't really have a lot of mentors and great people around me like yourself and others to kind of drive me that right direction. And it was interesting. I happened to meet a great group of entrepreneurs that had formed, I guess, a support network. They were all incredible gentlemen. And I had an early lesson of unfortunately falling for one of them, and vice versa. And I didn't realize going into raising capital, which I did for, kind of a family and friends round back then. Didn't need too much to run that business, but I signed off on a contract that was, let's say, non-negotiable, and it was more of a high interest loan than it was really an equity stake, although there was equity taken in the company. And I didn't understand that. And I think that was the big thing for me, was to learn that. Yeah, I think, moving forward, it was one of those things, going through the process and the damages of that, and continuing to move forward and grow in the experience, and not look back. I guess, that would be kind of one of the many challenges from a business perspective. So, and I think now I look at that, and I definitely want to pass it on to future entrepreneurs that are out there and starting up to say, think twice about falling in love with one of your board members or one of your shareholders, and definitely, or even doing business with your partner or your family, because I think oftentimes we don't think of what's going to happen next.
Yes. I have learned over the years that every contract I sign, I read out loud, and then I also have one of my attorney friends, depending on what the contract's about, review it for me and make sure that it represents what my best interests and that it's fair and equitable. And so that's something I do. And unfortunately, I've had to learn that the hard way too. And sometimes that happens and you think, okay, family, friends, whatever, but it really protects relationships.
Bingo. It absolutely does. No, for sure. So, and it's interesting. You always kind of look back now, even at the individual. When I think about it, I don't get angry. I think it was a good lesson. And I think for the expense, I know lots of people that have had worse off experiences where they've had to deal and dabble with millions. So I'd much rather have learned that step in a very small startup that didn't cost too much. It cost a lot of emotions at the time. I remember going back and feeling hurt, but it made me stronger. And I think that's the one thing is you kind of look at that and go, maybe there was a purpose behind why that experience happened at that time when I was quite young. And it opened up a lot of good opportunities and new doors because people came in to support and help me through that process. And now some of those people are even a part of my new company. So
nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd love to hear more about your company and what you're doing with this. It sounds incredible.
Oh yes. Oh, it's a never ever world. Actually, quite. I think in the U.S. it's a larger sense because there's a lot of banks. Obviously, compared to Canada, we're very traditional and conservative up north. As I always joke, as you go down to the U.S. and there's a few hundred plus banks, and you kind of go, well, where do I go? There's small municipal state banks to the large ones. But they're all under regulators, which is, a big part of both, globally where your money goes and where it's spent. Well, I guess that company that I was just telling you about, where I had my first experience that tapped into, no pun intended with the TAPanGO name, but from the socks in the school, it was a financial literacy program. And I'm very purpose driven where I learned at a young age coming from a single family home to budget. And I had my lessons in that as well, taking on student debt and loans and making my way in the world and paying debt off. And I think it was one of those things when I started the Socks in School program, it was really taking an item that youth and the next generation could understand the metrics of how much the cost was, selling it, and then earning some cash back to put towards something they cared about. What I started to realize there was a huge missing piece between kind of the parents and the families and where that goes on a bigger scale. And I don't know where I fell into it, Sheila, honestly, because I don't come from a banking background by any means, but I'd say 5-6 years ago, I just saw this need to go into converting and innovating or disrupting the bank's system. And that's where you read about neobanks and challenger banks and these likes of Robinhoods and Chimes and Revoluts and N26s, which have definitely been a huge conversation, especially Robinhood and Chime in the States, right? I was really starting to follow those CEOs in their early days and seeing what they were up to when they were seed round, like where I'm at right now, and looking at changing that way to access funding for people, which is what banking is about. And I started to look, well, if we could put more money back into people's pockets and do it in a better way, how would I go about that? And that is what TAPanGO is. I started to look at where we could better the fintechs, which is what a neobank is. It's a financial service technology company. So lots of people kind of go, oh, what is a neobank? It just means that you have your license by a sponsored bank. So you're riding on a bank to offer you the ability to work with their BINs. So when the customers you have or members set up an account, you are actually working with a bank to have the facilitation of that to be done. So that's what a neobank is. And for us, it's been really exciting. Like, I'm the first female founded neobank in Canada as of April 16th. So you're the first one that I've actually said this live on television. So I guess mine will start to come out. I'm really excited about that. We'll be moving forward with People's Trust in Canada. We have 3 banks that we have lined up and have to make a decision very shortly in the US. So it's nice to have them knocking at our door. Because what we've built out is our own marketplace. And that's what makes us innovative and different from the other ones, is really connecting with people in the actual communities that they belong. So whether you're a small business owner, we built a marketplace for small business owners. We built a marketplace for people that are into health and fitness and lifestyle. So each one of those marketplaces, we've welcomed in the businesses that belong to it to have our members be able to afford healthy living or to be able to afford running a small business. And it has that feel to give back, right? So oftentimes, and you probably agree with this, when you go into a bank, you kind of feel like a number. So that's what TAPanGO's specialty is we've really authenticated who our audience and who our clients are. And I'm not about quantity, I'm about quality. I really want to be about people. So
I love that. Yes, for me, I've been with the same little teeny tiny credit union for a million zillion years, with the school district that I used to work for a long time ago when my children were little. And I can literally pick up the phone and I know everybody by name, and they know, I mean, they know my voice. They're like, "What's your number?" But I already know you. And, we talk. And so,
perfect. And that's the way it should be everywhere. I think I love the little small community banks, and there's definitely, it's interesting. I know right now what's happening is a lot of organizations and investors, you can put a team together and buy these small little FDIC chartered banks in the States and then open them with these fintech product offerings. You still have to keep the authentic bank itself, which is great because like all these small communities, like you said, I've met some bank owners that it's been in the family for 80 years. And how do you can't leave it. Like I remember going into a little bank in a little town and they had a pony come in every Saturday for the kids and they had ice cream on the Tuesday night. And it was just, I was going, where does this happen? Not in Canada. I can definitely assure you that, but I absolutely loved it. I thought that was a really sweet spot. In the States, there's lots of little community banks and what they can offer. And now it's just taking that and being able to put a little bit more emphasis on how we can put some more financial services and better access, I think is the better thing, right? For really truly operational costs, where a lot of the small banks don't have necessarily the revolve to offer extensions or support for small businesses or single parents, those kind of things.
Yes, I remember as a small business owner, I opened my first gift store. It was 5,000 square feet when I was 23 years old.
Oh my gosh.
I got 6 months free rent, and I knew nothing about running a gift store. Doing so well by the end that I ended up buying 5 buildings in California, which is very expensive, based on the cash flow from the store. And one of the things I learned right away was business credit, using business. I started with, I think it was like net 30, everything you have to pay within 30 days. And
30 days. Yeah.
Within 6 months, I was net 120, and I was making 50, 60,000 a month at 23 years old.
For you.
The business credit, I was with that credit union, so they know, that's how, they know me forever. And they literally, they understood, and I would have this business credit and then my personal credit. So I kept them separate, which was great. And I literally could go buy a van for the store, 0 interest, for, however long it was. And it was the best deal. And I could just walk in. At 23, I had the key to the city practically. And it was really that, learning how to do that. Now, there were other businesses, small business owners, that didn't realize that secret. And they would end up spending their own credit, their own money, maybe refinancing their home or whatever. And if the business didn't work out, they were out of their credit and maybe out of their home. And so that really made a big difference. And then later with investing, I didn't like leasing. I literally had to pay $5,000 a month back then because it was so big. It's $1 square foot, right? And so with that, I said, you know what? I want to buy the buildings.
Smart.
And I did. And I put all the extra money. I cleaned things. I did whatever. I did a lot of the work, the sweat equity to pay it off.
Yeah.
Pay off a building in 3 to 4 years. Or less, and then I go get the next one.
And just move to the next. Smart.
The banking, having that relationship with the credit union, with the banks, I would literally be able to call them up, and within 3 days, I'd be able to close.
Yeah. That's perfect. Yeah. If you had a revolve going, which is exactly what everybody should have. And unfortunately, it's something they really don't teach. And obviously you have an intellectual knack for it. So congrats. Like, that's fantastic. I love hearing that, because I wish I never learned that at a young stage, but obviously now, like, moving in, and it is fascinating. Now, obviously banks are a lot harder to give out credit. Although now they're pumping out loans like there's no tomorrow. We'll see where that goes. There's pros and cons to that. In the market up here, at least in Canada, I see so many young people jumping into a hot house market that I just don't think is going to be able to be sustained. Right. And yeah, I always kind of rule of thumb in kind of my piggy bank, I always say to people, it's like, look, if you don't have the money in the bank, don't go and use the credit, because that's not what it's for. Because then you're going to be ended up charged all these interest fees and late fees, and you will never catch up. The minute that you start it becomes a blockage, and it just keeps growing the cycle. Because I've seen it with too many young people in university that I've mentored, and it's really hard once you start that debt cycle to get out of it.
Yes. I mean, the debt that we did was basically for the buildings. And that's why I wanted to pay it off accelerated. Mm-hmm. And I would pay as much into it every time I'd get these nice, whatever was overage would go into paying down the building. Pay down the building. No, I'll take care of that myself and save that money to pay down the building. And that made it really easy to buy and save the interest. Which I don't know, somehow I knew that, but yes,
that's awesome. Well, and then you had an asset, right? So I think that's, a true asset, which, to build that up, and once you have one asset to play with, especially a building or a property, like a lot of small business owners, it's amazing when I look at, like, I've been trying to convince a close contact of mine, who's another very dear close friend, who's been a lease owner of a salon for well over 17 years now. I'm going, why don't you just buy a little building? 17 years, like you would have owned it. You could have put another salon in it or rented off another side of it. And it's, I think, a lot of times you're just not trained on things that you can think about. Like, you're into, I just want to operate this side of the business. I don't want to think about owning the building. But yeah, I think there's lots to be said about what you can do going into businesses. I'm a cloud-based business, so it's kind of funny. I always say, I work off, obviously I can go into buildings and use coffee shops, which I floated around the world, definitely pre-pandemic, and spent a lot of time where you're based. Uh-huh. But all of my team are really global. And I think that's one of the neatest things coming out of what we're experiencing right now is a lot of the individuals, like going into this lockdown last March, my team were all kind of like, hey, is anything going to change? And we kind of all said, man, it really makes us realize, like, we were already living in a pandemic, or quarantine was the joke. I was like, everybody was set up working from home. That was kind of my rule of thumb with a lot of our staff was, and we're very mean and lean. I'm a true entrepreneur, where I've learned also to kind of stay, to the budget line. Like, you don't need to go out strong, because we're not making profit as of yet, because we're just getting, finally, after 4 years, our technology's built and the bank licenses. So it's one of those things, but everybody's remote. Like, there's team overseas, there's team in the US, there's team in Canada, and yeah, lots of them are young faces, and some of them are retired people that have come back to work for me that were former CFOs of big Fortune 500 companies. And all of them love it, because they can work from their cottage, they can work from their house, they can work from their boat, and we can all connect this way, which is great. So
nice. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Now I'd love to hear about the athletic side of Angella.
Yeah, no, for sure. All right. Well, definitely an athlete, true and true. It's what goes into my company, hence ATHLETICA Rewards, ATHLETICA Protect being the flagship program of TAPanGO, of course, that healthy living product. But yeah, my background in sport definitely grew up in a family that supported anything that I wanted to do. My mom was a champ. She kind of stuck me in the ballet classes, to the soccer lessons, the field hockey, you name it. And it was always up to me to kind of choose what I liked. And she never forced anything upon me. And I just always had great coaches, whether that be my mom, Obviously from being the champ at home that made sure the meals were there, and I always learned how to eat healthy and respect my body as much as I could. And then at the same point in time, had some great high school coaches, and that's where I found myself. I always joke when I say this, sport found me, I didn't find it. And it's really because I think when my parents went through a separation, that's where I relied on sport as my outlet. And for lots of youth, which is what I love working with, I always kind of say, what's your sport? What do you want to do, right? And because I think it's such a positive way to be able to put some of those nerves and energy. If you're 13-year-old, which is what I was when my parents got separated, there's a lot of things I could have got into, but I got into running, and hitting the pavement was the best thing for my mind. And a young woman that was the coach at the high school I was at noticed me running back and forth everywhere all the time, and running to the bus, and she just said, I think you got to join the cross country team. And from there it took off. Like I went to trained and raced at a junior age for provincials in British Columbia, and then I got picked up for a scholarship to go to a private school, and did well there. And that's where rowing, and I think that's in my my longer bio you had, rowing ended up being my national level sport. Then it found me. Because I never had rowed before, and in grade 12 at this private school, you're set up to, you have to do an art and a sport, which is great. And when cross country finished, all the coaches kind of said, well, what are you going to do next? Because here are the sports you can choose in the winter, and the sports choices were volleyball, basketball, and rowing. And I kind of was like, well, in grade 12, you don't just step on a basketball court or a volleyball court. And I always joke at saying this, I'm a horizontal athlete. I can move forward, sideways, and backwards really fast. But if you tell me to jump, this girl got no jump. I got no game on the jumping. So basketball and volleyball were out. So I said yes to rowing, and they threw me in this water tank to see how I could do. And next thing you know, it was like, wow, she's a power horse, because I had a great endurance engine, right? So moved me into, junior worlds. I moved up the ranks pretty fast with going from Brentwood College on Vancouver Island. So for those that are watching, it's an amazing school. Lots of kids from all over the world, great with academics and sport. And they were really there for me, and they pushed me to accelerate, and had the opportunity to get into a couple great universities down in the States, in fact. But I stayed close to home just because the national women's team trained out of Victoria, British Columbia on Vancouver Island, which is where I grew up. And that's where I kind of trained for the Olympics, sustained, which is the unfortunate. I think, like so many athletes, I trained with the crew up until 2004, and unfortunately was injured going into the games, and never accepted going forward to participate, I guess, in that sense. There was 2 other women in the women's 8, so there's 3 of us that were out. And it's unfortunate I know the US has an incredible women's rowing crew. So if you go back to 2004, I think it's the first time in women's history in our sport that unfortunately, as Canadians, we didn't even make it to the finals. And it's because there was 3 of us out of the boat. And it was a tough experience. Another one of those raw moments, right? Like bootstrapping it and being down at the bottom. And I think thanks to sport and the optimism, it was kind of like, okay, I've been here before, and you have to look at, am I going to come back? And I was graduating that year as well, and I had a really great job offer, and that's where I turned my focus. And I think that's, I had an outlet to go to instead of going down in a spiral of thinking, what's going to happen here? So sport elevated me. I ended up working for a great minister, and I found the cycling at that stage. And next thing I know is Hushang Amiri, and he'll definitely have to watch this because I have a lot to thank him for to this day. He found me cycling to the University of Victoria, and because I passed a bunch of his athletes. And they were a bunch of national level athletes, and he said, who the heck is this girl? I think I was running to it, like biking to an exam that I was late for or something. So, and cycling stuck. Like, honestly, I think, I raced for a couple of women's professional teams, but because I had already graduated and had a great job, I found myself in a position where I got an opportunity to move to Ottawa from Vancouver Island when I was 26 years old. and worked for a federal minister up on the Hill. And that was a real full-time job. So I kind of chose career at an early stage thinking, you know what, my outlet is to give back to sport and go into politics, and, you know, had that aspiration because that's what at that time my I guess education was. And when I moved to Ottawa, I fell in love. The way for me to get to know a community is by sport. So I kind of, like got out there, I guess, and unlike just working on the Hill, I joined the running room and the cycling club here. And next thing I know was I was joining the race series, and I fell in love with triathlon and raced a couple pro races there and did really well. But the cycling was still my thing. And that kind of propelled me to go after cycling across Canada when I got approached through my company that you learned about the SOC one with the schools, and had this incredible experience of biking across Canada in 2013 with the 13,000 plus schools that we had with Sock Jock. And it was all about outdoor education and giving back. And we raised a lot of funding for outdoor education programs. And, you know, that's a memory that I'll never take back. I would do it in a heartbeat again. So if anybody ever wants to bike across Canada again, I'm putting it out there, just let me know. But, or the US, there's a race across the Americas. But yeah, I fell in love with the bike. I kind of started to really see a lot more in the sense of like what I could do. And at that time, that's where the idea of Tap and Go started to really create or curate, I should say, you know, sleeping in parks and campgrounds with a support crew that were all former professional athletes. I started to really see the lack of funding that families had to access sport and play. And that's where the light bulb went off. And it was that connection with financial literacy programs that we were offering and looking at other athletes that had lack of funding when they were pro athletes, especially the women. I just was like, I think we need to change this. And that's, you know, so it was kind of the combination of the love I have for sport and the world of business combining. And I feel like I honestly have the best job. I love what I do, even on the rough days. Being a startup right now, it's still pretty awesome.
Yes. Well, my history is related to what you do in the sense that when I was a young girl, I was in the pre-junior Olympics for swimming on the swimming teams, and that was my thing. And I was in a troubled home most of the time, and so my escape was swimming in the neighbor's pool. And literally, they would bring me food. I would be in that pool for 6 hours, and I was in this meditation in motion. It was the most peaceful escape, and I loved it. And then I'd go swim with the group and have these competitions and this and that. And the funding, because then I ended up homeless and in and out of homes and from home to home and all this. And when I was invited, and there's so much expense that goes along with this, that I didn't have the funding. So I had to not go that route. So I'm like the perfect example of the situation.
There you go. Exactly. Like and you had the opportunity. And I think that's exactly, like, your story sounds so remarkable. And like, you know, everyone has their own. And I definitely, you know, I'm going to get teary eyed if I start talking about it. And I think that's where making change and impact matters. And there is this pandemic, the one thing that I've definitely seen is more and more conversations about how do we elevate girls and women in sport, and just to get to C-suite levels and executive levels and boards, and that, you know, pushing that message out there, and especially for girls, like, to really grow up with that ability. Like I think now, and it's interesting, Sheila, and you know, my mom even mentions it, I've always biked, I've always loved cycling, I've always been strong, but there was never a cycling club for women when I was 10 years old or 13. It didn't exist. There wasn't even a pro women's team when I was 18 or 19. So, you know, and I think even in university, like Linda Jackson is, you know, hats off, incredible woman. She's running Team TAPanGO in Silicon Valley Bank, an incredible US cycling pro women's team that is equal pay to their male athletes. They are the first to make that step, and they should be followed. They are being followed, I should say, too. But, you know, it took a lot of convincing, but a lot of the athletes that race for Team TAPanGO in Silicon Valley Bank, these women are PhD level, master's levels, holding a career at the same time as racing professionally for the last 2 decades up until this last year. And their counterparts were paid professionally and didn't have to work a day in their life, nor did they even have any form of post-secondary, most of them. So, like, very interesting. Now here, well, obviously these women are very driven, but it's just, man, like, you think about the hardships that you have to go through to try to make something that's there. And we all know that certain things, whether it's arts or sports, are, academics at a young age, if that's what your dream or your goal is, that propels you to whatever that next thing you have in your life. It does. Like, we know that for a fact. So we should be elevating it a lot more.
Yes. I still, where I live now, I actually am coming to you from a country club sports club, and I have an Olympic sized pool, and I go 3 or 4 hours, and they're like, how does she do that? She doesn't look like she could do that. But it's, you never lose it. And it's still really more for my mind than anything. It's like my healing. It's my meditation in motion. And it's something that that was one of my priorities when I made my move, which was actually in 2019, the main move. And when I did that, I really wanted to move to a place where I had the ability to have wellness around me and to have that access, to have it for my family. My daughter's like on 2 different sports teams. And she's just, that's who she is too. And so it was so healthy for us, especially during this crazy year, to have places where we could walk on pathways and on the grass and take swims and do all these things.
Yeah, and get out.
And we have the home gym too. We have the Peloton and all that stuff at home, which when we were really locked down and we couldn't even leave the house, basically.
My God.
We still at least, I mean, that was our saving grace. I think we would have lost our minds because we had whole bodies. We like
the Peloton, like how much they've grown. I love it. It's right.
Yeah, so that was it was like, okay, I invested in that. Those things were more important to me than my furniture. I have a reformer at home. I have a infrared sauna. I have a ice bath. I have a float coming now. That's the one that I just ordered, the float. And so those are important to me because I'm like, I want to have a lifestyle because I run a lot of businesses. I do this radio show. I have my books. I do consulting. I work with a magazine that's a magazine that's national. It actually is in Canada as well. And we communities. So I'm a publisher with the magazine. And so I do a lot, but if I didn't have that time to recharge, I wouldn't actually be able to do as much as I do.
Yeah, you have to take care of your number one, right? Like, that's so important to take. I always kind of say, like, if you're not around, who else is going to do the job, right? And your health, and that includes like mental, physical, and nutritional well-being. I like your idea. I'm thinking like fitness furniture. Somebody's got to hashtag that. If that hasn't been hashtagged, like, I have more fitness furniture in my house than furniture.
Yes, I mean, I am literally on a stand-up desk with a little, look, I want to show you all. I've got the little board that you stand on.
It's a board. It's awesome. If you were to look at me, I'm literally wearing running shoes. I got a nice top on, but I got my Under Armour little shoes on.
That's right, because it's like if you sit all day, that's absolutely not healthy. And I thought, okay, I'm going to add this. I'm getting the desk, and so I love it. And it just, I think your mind is even better when you're on your feet anyway. So
absolutely, you got to move around. Like, I break up my calls always, like yourself, like 10 to 15 minutes. You can get up, drink lots of water, standing. Usually we've got a beautiful cul-de-sac, same thing here. Very fortunate. We live in the country on 3 acres, and all of the houses next to us have the same amount of land. And there's a beautiful trail right behind our house. So it's really great to get out. Just for me to walk the Crescent, and the whole neighborhood takes a good 30 minutes, 40 minutes. So I can take a call as long as it's not pouring with rain, and I'll put my headset on and take off outside and, do some business on the road. And most people these days, they kind of appreciate it. They can hear the birds in the background, and it's great to just kind of get up and move. So when I'm not on the bike or, working on other Zooms.
Yeah. So that does make a big difference. Now, do you have any suggestions for those people listening in that really are looking to figure out this kind of balance between wellness and work? Because a lot of times we do one really well and the other doesn't do well at all because we're maybe over focused, or so how to do that, to have both.
How to have both? Well, I always kind of look at it, everything's habitual, right? Law of pattern is 21 days. At least that's the rule of thumb in fitness. So we always say if you're willing to put something in, make it 21 days, and if it doesn't suit. So I always kind of say you have to find what it is that you enjoy that's for health and wellness, right? So what might be like you enjoy swimming. I drowned. Like I've done triathlons, trust me, but I get out there and I am like, the only joke, and I say this all the time, of why I'm so fast on the bike is because I'm so freaking wanting to get out of the water. It's just like the whole thing, the whole time I'm swimming, I'm like, the bike, get to the bike, get to the bike. But finding what you love in health and fitness, whether it's walking, whether it's running, whether it's playing tennis, going for a hike, and making that point of the time. And I always say for most people, especially people that are busy, like running a company or if they have kids, life is always nice before the sun rises. I always say it's the calm of the morning. You've just woken up from a deep sleep, waking up and just allowing your body that ability to breathe almost like for the first time and think through the processes of the last day to go into that day. I love morning sessions just because it ignites me. That's one thing. I know a lot of people love their sleep. So then I always say, okay, well, the middle of the day is also a really great time. And it's also a good kick in the butt to get up from the desk or to, hey, take that break to tell all of your team, especially if you're running a company, everybody gets this time and I want you to go and do something that's for you. Whether that's meditation, whether that's yoga, whether that's taking your dog for a walk, whether it's taking you for a walk or the dog taking you for a walk. Everybody needs that. And sometimes that middle of the day kind of kick in the butt gets the endorphins going again, makes again like that sense of clarity. So it's always kind of good things. And, taking an hour is not a lot. Like I always kind of put into perspective when people say, well, I don't have much time in the day. And I know right? Like it's an excuse. It's like, how do you say that, right? And then you sit down to watch like an hour of Netflix at night, or again, fitness furniture. Put the bike in front of the TV if that Netflix episode or whatever is so important to watch. Or, hey, you're going to watch the Sheila Mac show? Awesome. Get on the bike, get on the treadmill, bounce on a Bosu ball, grab a skipping rope at the same time. Like there's things you can always do. And I think for me, I always say to people, once you find that thing, you're going to go back to feeling like you're a little kid. And that's why, I always go back to kind of referencing, if you think about being a child, you couldn't wait to go and play with your friends, kick a soccer ball, play jumping jacks, or whatever it be, right? So I always kind of go back and say, well, what was that thing you wanted to do when you went to play with your friends when you were young? Was it hop on your bikes and take off on your parents? Those kind of things. Well, that's what you should try to lean on, because that will bring back some really fun memories.
Mm-hmm. And when I do consulting, a lot of times with moms, especially, but really moms and dads, what happens is you finish college, and maybe during college you had to study really hard to get the degree. So you didn't get to do the exercise or play the sport or have the fun. And then you get married, and then you have children somewhere along the line. And the next thing you know, you've got to be a responsible adult. So play goes away. And well, I can't do that because now I'm an adult. And it's just, or I've got all these responsibilities. And one lady I worked with, she used to ride horses, and this was her thing. And it was like a part of her essence. And then she gave it up. And it turned out that we had this talk, and she was trying to figure this out. And, well, I don't have the money for this because horses are very expensive. And I helped her out with finding a place where she knew everything about horses. So she volunteered her time and she did an exchange.
Cool.
And then she created a whole, it was like a program for homeschool kids during the day and for then school children after school with the horses. And they owned the horses, they had everything. And she just went there and started this program, and she was happy again. Her relationship, other areas of the life got better, work, because she actually stopped her other job and just did that.
That's awesome. Love it. Love it.
Everything was aligned. And what happened was, before that, she was resentful. The little girl was like really upset inside of her. The little girl was like, hey, when am I going to get to play? Never.
Where we go. Yeah.
Never.
Exactly.
And so that's something. And then it really even helped her children to have the freedom to go do what they love to do.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's so important to not give this up. Or maybe it's playing a sport. Start a softball team now that we're opening up again in some places. We're able to. In the US we are, and I think in Canada you're not, but depending on where
fingers crossed by May 20th.
Have a team or have a family team, go play sports together, whatever you can do that you used to love will just, I think it just makes everything else easier and happier, and you have fun, and then you want to go to work because it's like a team. It's creating the team. The teamwork at work.
And you got energy. Like it's all of a sudden you just get this, it's like a free bottle of energy. Like I always, people always say, well, I wish I could bottle up your energy. I said, well, just make your own. Like it's quite, obviously to get going, it is hard. I know lots of people, if you're stuck, as you said, over a long period of time, if you don't get moving, but it doesn't take long for those good old endorphins to kick in and remember things. And I think that's, again, it's finding, my significant other, he's a motocross athlete, and same thing, he raced pro, and he sold his dirt bike. This is how much he loved it. He sold his dirt bike to start his first company. And that was a really hard decision. That was years ago, but he made a pact. He said, the minute that I'm going to make this amount of revenue and profits in the company, I'm going to go buy another dirt bike. So when he got there, he bought himself a dirt bike. And I think that's the best thing, and it's great because there's lots of families at the motocross track. So obviously I'm a self-propelled cyclist. He likes the ones with the motors, and it works out really well. I usually ride to the dirt track, and you arrive there, and all these families are out there with their campers and their trailers, and there's the minis, and I think that's the same in the horse industry. It's you find the family, and I think that's what a lot of people, they don't realize until they step outside their door that there's all these other individuals that are out there doing it, and it ends up being, it's a great way to make lifelong friends. And they're there to push you and drive you, and they're also there for you through some of the tough times. Like honestly, the cycling community for me, it sounds like the swimming for you, has been this opportunity to grow personally, but it's also added people to my life that I wouldn't have probably had otherwise, for sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it looks like we're coming to the end of our time. So I'd love for you, we could talk for a long time. Yeah. So I would love for you to share where people can connect with you, how they can get involved and learn more about your business.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, I'm super approachable, obviously, as you can tell. You can see me on Instagram at Angella, and it's with 2 L's, Goran, Goran. I'm also on LinkedIn, very approachable on that from a business sense. So obviously post lots on that. And then same point, TAPanGO is TAPanGO.com. So they can check us out as our company expands there. We just opened our seed round, so I'm really excited about that. So definitely looking for some great angel investors at this point in time. We started to pitch funds last week. So it's ever going, like every day right now. It's been an eye opener for me to be trying to do it virtually. But lots are coming out of the States just because the market is obviously the fintech space is booming, as we've seen some large companies in the last little while. But I think I look forward to having people follow, as obviously from the sport perspective, I'm going after a world record, and I know we didn't touch on that, but that kind of leads people to want to come and see what I'm up to. But my last stint as a professional athlete will be in 2021. I'm really excited to say that I'm going after the first Canadian to do the elite women's UCI 1 hour indoor cycling world record, which will take place in Aguascalientes, Mexico, the world's fastest indoor cycling track. And I will be down to Los Angeles this summer to train on the Los Angeles Velodrome. But so that's my last time that I'm going to put on a pro skin suit. And I've been training for it for 5 years. And we have actually been approved by Amazon Prime for a guaranteed independent film that is called Perfect or Podium: Breaking Records and Barriers for Girls and Women in Sport, where I will be pledging, as well as the producer, proceeds from the ROI that come from that film viewership to creating a fund for girls and women in sport across the world. So yeah, so that will be all on AngelaGoran.com very shortly in the forthcoming about four weeks, and then we'll be pressing the button on that. So yeah.
That'll be great. All right. Well, thank you again for being a guest on the show, Angela. And for those listening, stay tuned. We'll be back after these messages. I have a giveaway gift for all my listeners, especially for beautiful, authentic you. Request your free introduction to the Boots formula and Boots meditation today at www.sheilamac.com/boots meditation. Sheila, SHEILAMAC.com/BOOTS meditation. All right. Welcome to the Sheila Mac Show, reality at its finest. Here we have real people sharing real stories and actionable steps to help you reinvent, rebuild, and reboot your business and personal life on your terms. I'm your host, Sheila Mac, and today we have special guest John Lee Dumas. John is the founder and host of the award-winning podcast Entrepreneurs on Fire. With over 100 million listeners of his 3,000 plus episodes, John Lee Dumas has turned Entrepreneurs on Fire into a media empire that generates over 1 million listeners every month and 7 figures of net annual revenue 8 years in a row. His first traditionally published book, The Common Path to Uncommon Success, is available for pre-order now with 5 amazing bonuses at uncommonsuccessbook.com. All right, welcome to the show, John.
Sheila, I am fired up to be here. Thanks for having me. Looking forward to a great conversation.
Yes. And one of the things that I like to start out with is if you have a time in your business or personal life where you hit a tough situation and how you got back on track.
I'll choose a personal moment for me. I was an officer in the U.S. Army for 8 years, and I spent 13 months as a platoon leader in charge of 4 tanks and 16 men. And it was a very, very intense time. It was, war, so to speak. So when I got back, it was pretty intense because I just transitioned to the civilian world. And I absolutely dealt with PTSD. I dealt with depression. I dealt reintegrating back into the quote unquote civilian world. And I struggled for a long time with it. But, by surrounding myself with the right people, other vets that were going through similar things, by, talking to therapists and other professionals, I was able to move forward and enter the next chapter of my life.
Wow, that's incredible. And thank you for your service. So one of the questions that I have is, as an entrepreneur, what is the number one reason you think that entrepreneurs are failing at such a high rate today?
Because, Sheila, they're trying to copy other entrepreneurs that they see that are successful, and they're becoming weak, pale imitations of those entrepreneurs. What everybody needs to realize is that they have a big idea within themselves. They have a zone of fire that they can be living within. You're a special person. You're unique. You're a snowflake. You have something amazing to share with the world. Don't try to copy and imitate and be a pale, weak imitation of somebody else's message. Find your message, do your thing, find your big idea, live in your zone of fire every single day.
Now, why is identifying your big idea not enough sometimes?
Listen, it's just not enough because your big idea is this big, amazing idea, but other people have had that big idea, and that's competition that's entrenched, that's been doing it for a while. You've got to identify a void within that big idea that's not being filled. You've got to discover a niche that is not being utilized. You've got to understand and uncover a real problem within that big idea that's currently not being solved. That's how and where you're actually going to be able to get your initial momentum, your initial traction to actually win.
Mm-hmm. That makes a lot of sense. I've been an entrepreneur since I was like in my early 20s, starting my first gift store and going on from there. And one of the things I found is there's so many people, experts, proclaimed experts out there. And how do people deal with that? Like there's so many that aren't really experts. How have people been lied to by these self-proclaimed experts in this online business world now?
Listen, there are some fantastic experts out in this world here. They are sharing amazing, great value with the world. And then there's the so-called experts. And by the way, a red flag for these so-called experts is when they like to share things like, the path to success is hidden, or it's secret, or it's complicated. But for $1,997.97, I will give you the key to unlock all your success and your dreams. And you see that everywhere. But the reality is this: I've interviewed 3,000 successful entrepreneurs. I have learned from every single one what it takes to become a success, to find your version of financial freedom and fulfillment. And it's taken me a decade to compile all this knowledge, but I can tell you without a doubt, with 3,000 actual case studies to pull from, the path to success, it's a common one. It is a very common path. There are fundamental principles that entrepreneurs follow to achieve their version of financial freedom and fulfillment. I mean, that's why I didn't write the book, The Complicated Path to I didn't write the secret path or the hidden path. It's the common path to uncommon success. But let's be clear, Sheila, you've worked hard in the past. I have worked really hard in the past. Every entrepreneur that I've interviewed has worked very hard. It is not an easy road to uncommon success. It's a common path where there are 17 core foundational principles that you can work hard, follow step by step, and achieve to get to financial freedom and fulfillment.
Oh, that makes a lot of sense. And what is your favorite one of those steps in that roadmap?
It would definitely be chapter 7, step 7, which is creating your content production plan. Again, not only have I interviewed 3,000 of the world's most successful entrepreneurs, but I run the world's largest podcasting paid community. It's called Podcaster's Paradise. We have over 6,000 members. We've been running it for 8 years. I've seen it all. And I can tell you without a doubt, the people who win, which are very few, that win at a high level, have a fantastic content production plan. All the other people do something that we call pod fading. They just kind of fade off into the distance. And that's true in podcasting. That's true in YouTube. That's true in social media. That's true in all forms of business.
Right.
If your content production plan is not dialed in and fantastic, you will lose.
And I'd love to hear more about your book launch, maybe some more details about that.
So like I said, this book is the culmination of the 3,000 interviews I've done with the world's most successful entrepreneurs. I boiled down the 17 core foundational principles that we all share as successful entrepreneurs. And I put it in this chronological 17-step roadmap, and I wrote, and I wrote, and I wrote. It took me 8 hours of writing 2 hours per day, 480 writing hours to get to the 71,000 words, the 273 pages that comprise the common path to uncommon success. But it's here, it's done, it's available. And if you want to learn more about the book, you can read the first chapter for free. You can see the amazing 5 bonuses. You can see the endorsements from Seth Godin, Gary Vaynerchuk, Neil Patel, Erica Mandy, Dory Clark, and so much more at uncommonsuccessbook.com.
All right. Well, thank you so much. I look forward to reading your book, and I hope everyone listening in also does. All right. Thank you again, John, for being a guest on the show. All right.
Adios.
Bye.
All right, if you're just tuning in, this is the Sheila Mack Show on NBC's KCAA Radio, the station that leaves no listener behind. And I would like to invite you to get started if you are looking to reinvent, rebuild, and reboot your business and personal life, and just want to start with the guidebook. Get Bootstraps and Bra Straps, the formula to go from rock bottom back into action in any situation. It is a great beginning guide to start getting back on track and rebuilding and rebooting your business this year. It is available at Amazon, Audible, Kindle, and SheilaMac.com, SheilaMac.com. Also, if you'd like to go a little bit deeper in your business reboot, sign up for the Business Leader Reboot course at SheilaMac.com. That is, if you want to lead your team or your company to even more success, I help you using the Boots formula and my years of experience in business so that you can quickly and easily have even more success. go to SheilaMac.com and under courses, look for Business Leader Reboot. To grab a copy of my new best-selling book, Bootstraps and Bra Straps, the formula to go from rock bottom back into action in any situation. It is now available on Audible as well as on Amazon and Kindle and at www.SheilaMac.com.